move up here. Welcome to my talk, where I'll present some ways to anonymize and improve your testing. I want to thank the team here at B-Sides NYC for not only giving me a chance to speak, but organizing this conference. Oops. Technical details. All right, the agenda. This talk's going to cover things both from the threat hunters and attackers can use to do their jobs better. The agenda will talk about the basic building blocks to get anonymous infrastructure, testing, active tests that can be anonymized, such as drop boxes that give IR nightmares, unmemorable side channels for those drop boxes, social engineering with breach data, burnt sites and avoidance, then VPN and Tor signature avoidance. And then we're going to do a quick story time as a quick way to walk through highlighting the items that we talked about today. First of all, no companies were harmed in the making of this talk. No security vulnerabilities are exploited or discussed. These are just the things the way they are in the public domain. Completely accessible, completely passive. No active reconnaissance was done, no penetration testing at all. All right, who am I? I've held numerous roles in IT, which in general helps me in my current role as a penetration tester. Since you really can't be a good penetration tester without knowing other aspects of IT, I hold a number of industry certificates, so that I can impress no one in this room. I'm a hobby farmer, beekeeper, and overall, I try just to be a force of chaotic good. All right, this talk will help you with a zero-scope engagement. That is an open scope engagement that places all employees, infrastructure, and third-party vendors as possible attack surfaces. This is against a client that has a more advanced capacities for discovery and detection, or any security job that needs a level of anonymous between you and the targets. For later in the talk, our fictional client will be the energy supply group. As we know, critical infrastructure is under increased threat actor pressure, so it's a good one to look at. But where to start? Oh, I said this, right? Because this is going to be important later on, that you remember this. All right. Back in 2019, I spoke about how to create anonymous companies and profiles by abusing the broken trust model of the internet. A lot of those methods and comments still work today. That talk looked in detail about the creation of the anonymous proxy accounts, infrastructure services, and companies for an engagement. You can look at IronGate's website for that talk, where I can't go into details here. You'll notice between that talk and this talk, I still need help with memes and coloring, but it is what it is. Before we look at active attacks that can be anonymized, I'm going to summarize the three key components that you are going to need to anonymize your infrastructure. And first of all, we can have this conversation later at the after party, but cryptocurrency is not anonymous. Anything with an open registry is not anonymous. But essentially, prepaid debit cards are the internet's version of cash. The cards that you want to avoid are the ones that say verify ID. Those are normally the rechargeable ones. So if they say rechargeable or verify ID, they're going to want your SS number, so don't use them. So any other kind of gift card will work. You use services that you can use prepaid debit cards with are anything that's a prepaid service. And that's services where you pay up front and then your usage takes away from the balance. You can acquire email, VNCs, VPCs, voice over IP services, all using the prepaid debit cards. They say you cannot purchase monthly services like Gmail, or Business Gmail, or O365. That's not true. I get blocked. Every once in a while you do. AWS and Azure, the last time I did it, it was tricky, and it required breaking actually the payment flow. So really don't try it. Well, you can try it, but it may not work. Other major VPCs, DigitalOcean, et cetera, they all work with prepaid debit cards, so no problem there. Stick with them. Just have enough balance on the pre-card for the length of the engagement, or you're going to have to swap out cards, and that can get messy. Normally, I find $100 to $200 on these cards are good because of the fact that if you get burnt, $200 isn't really a big thing. I got this one actually from the talented guys at Black Hills from a talk earlier, about a month ago or so. The Amex cards actually are a closed network. I completely forgot about that. So it's less likely to get flagged by fraud. So you could try an Amex card with a monthly service. All right. You're going to need a VPN. Either as a threat hunter or an hacker, you just need a VPN. Two providers that I know work and allow for anonymous purchases, private internet access, takes gift cards or prepaid debit cards. They require an email address, but just use a burner email address. You buy a full term, 1 year, 3 years, it doesn't really matter. The one I really like is Malvit. You sign up, you get an account number. That VPN service is excellent. You can mail cash to Sweden or use a prepaid debit card. You can actually buy a service card for them on Amazon. I looked into this because it got me concerned, but there's really no association between the account number and the service card. So that's also a very convenient factor. All right, personally, my house, all my internet traffic goes out one VPN service using pfSense. Then I use a local VPN agent on my dirty equipment. Dirty equipment is just equipment I use to do my threat actor stuff. It's just a different provider, vendor. There is Tor, but this is useless for the purpose of this talk. Activities where we're looking to remove attestation between ourselves and the target and not raise red flags. Social media companies are entrusting when your IP address comes from the Tor endpoints and VPN services. Firewall vendors now have rules that block Tor inbound. They're using the same Tor endpoint list that are published. However, there are ways to bypass. The last building block, obviously, is a burner phone. Prepaid monthly cash, recharge cards, major retail outlets, Target, Walmart, whatever. The burner phone gives you a number and a geographical location of your choice. Nothing will burn a phishing attempt quicker than calling a company outside the geographical location or the area code number. Having a burner phone is a must when you're looking to create these proxy social media accounts or getting other internet services. Smart burner phones are still the easiest way to get the proxy service accounts. Sorry, forgot to start my timer. All right, smartphone apps simplify keeping social media proxy accounts without having to send your ID or tilt your face when all your traffic goes out a VPN endpoint. And if you've ever used Facebook for a long time, you know that. You're stupid. All right, remember LTE is not anonymous or our smartphones. Smartphone apps will never equal anonymous. You can remember to disable the tracking services and other trackers, but you're still trusting the OS and the apps not to take that extra data that will disclose your geographical location or any other data on the phone. Remember to use your separate burner phones and your social media accounts for engagements, because frankly, metadata kills. In all things, remember your metadata between your phone numbers, your accounts, your infrastructure that you use. Threat hunters have ADP profiles on penetration companies besides threat actors. Threat hunters have several different models to correlate and share the metadata. It's beyond the scope of this talk it's beyond the scope of the talk to talk about this, but as attackers, we need to be familiar with the models beyond the Martel attack framework. As attackers, we can use the threat hunter's intelligence feeds, not only to see if our metadata may tip off a target before the engagement starts, but what threat hunters are currently seeing and focusing on. All right, that is my 10-minute summary of the other talk. Let's look at some active attacks that can be anonymized. All right, Dropboxes. I'm so glad that we are able to do physicals again, all right, to get into environments. All right, we have some real choices to give IR some nightmares with Dropboxes are found. We all have our favorites. The device I prefer is the Nano R1 Pi. Why? It has dual NICs for Duckwall's 2004 NAC bypass or just appearing as a man in the middle of the MAC address of the device. That is a must if you're going to be placing a device on the network. It has an internal 8 gig memory storage, an SD slot, Wi-Fi, sports and Ubuntu core, and dual USB ports. If it came with Bluetooth, it would be perfect for deployment, but it is what it is. Small factor form makes it a breeze to conceal. I did say self-destroying. And I'm not talking about lithium because that's just not safe for life and limb. All right, when you have a Pi unit with an SD card, the typical IR response is to plug in a console cable or take the SD card. Both of these events can be monitored for when you have a device such as this, where the real OS is actually running from internal memory. So what needs to happen is to monitor if the SD card is mounted at boot time and with a cron job that runs, say, every 60 seconds or so, that looks and checks to see if the SD card has been removed. If that event is triggered, you just start wiping your configuration files that disclose where your data is going. At the point that it's done, just reboot to kill any artifacts in memory. The same thing if you see a serial cable getting attached. You could destroy the debug ports before deployment, but that wastes $100 and, well, I'm cheap. All right, don't forget to place a fake OS and config on that SD card. The Nano R1 will boot first from the internal storage, so there's no issues about worrying about the wrong image being booted from. All right, for more details, I actually have an article at Netitudes Labs with the details of how to set up this device, the proof of concept scripts for a external egress, the Wi-Fi side channel, duct walls, NAC bypass, and the self-destroying script. And depending on the client and engagement, I use several different methods for egress communications. But first, I'm going to talk about the issues with LTE. And then we'll discuss some side channels, 3 of them that are currently unmonitorable and 1 that is detectable. All right, even if you're using cash to buy LTE services, it's going to be tracked, at least to an area in a geographical, general movement by cell tower triangulation. The EEF and others have some really interesting reading on how the government violates the spirit of U.S. constitutional law by buying from third-party data sources like cell phone tower metadata and other metadata. You add in SafeGraph and a number of other data brokers, and LTE tracking is a trivial matter. You may not know who, but you can associate where that device has been. I should say that the FBI called an oops, my bad, after they got caught and claims to have stopped buying this type of data without a warrant. But what about all the other 3-letter agencies that we have in the government, including the U.S. Postal Service, I guess, based off of reports a few years ago? As a side note, there are other ways to track a target with the same concept as an AirTag. You've probably read about that. Look at pet tracking devices. They're waterproof, and they work just as well. But it's obviously not always legal. Unless it's your kid, then have at it. Your kids make the perfect test subjects when you're looking for tracking devices and methods. You know? All right, this is from the FBI presentation in 2019 on cellular information. It's a little small, but this slide shows the retention period of text messages, internet surfing, and other things on cell phones by the different providers. Again, this is talking about the right target. You know, this isn't the mom and pop shop that you're running, but this is, you know, you need to be smart about where you make your purchase of LTE modems and where to turn them on. Once you have one that's working, buy it. When you're in the geographical location of your target, turn it up. They won't ever see the transportation from your home or whatever. All right, let's go. All right, talk about side channels now. The following 2 side channels are not really useful as a side channel beyond on-site configuration and operational confirmation of the Dropbox. Both are currently unmonitored, so it's a good choice for this purpose because frankly, there's nothing worse when you get a Dropbox that's not going to call home and you have to troubleshoot it. Bluetooth, SSH over Bluetooth is supported by a number of Pi devices now. Its range is about 30 feet to 300 feet, depending on what you read and the equipment you have. But you can figure it's about 30 feet. It's not really practical beyond accessing during deployment, but there's lots of documentation on the internet on how to actually get SSH over Bluetooth or Bluetooth personal area network. Zigbee, same range as Wi-Fi, also in the 2.4 gigahertz range. To be honest, I haven't really had a chance to play with it because I haven't seen a practical use for it. I'm self-funding a lot of my research, and well, the wife and kids, they like nice things too. everyone can say, woe is me, and that's my impression of Prince Harry. That's all right, I work with UK people. They didn't like that joke either. So. All right, Wi-Fi. It's a fair range. Use of a Jaeger antenna does improve it to be an operational range to make it practical as a side channel when you're in the geographical location. However, many vendor products have some form of rogue access point detection, and some can actually jam. If you're required to use it, I would suggest that you monitor the ECIDs in the area before your deployment and figure out how to blend in. And I should say, while it's not a side channel, I did mention about S-tunnel. If you're going to send a reverse SSH shell out your client, it's a requirement. Network, look at using an S-tunnel wrapper in a cron job to turn up and down that tunnel during business hours. The S-tunnel will hide the SSH traffic from devices on the network detecting it. All right, now actually let's talk about the one unmonitorable device that is actually untraceable, and it's actually practical to use once you overcome some limitations. All right, LoRa, low range radio. It's approximately 6 miles with the right position equipment. It operates in the unregulated frequency band of 954 megahertz in North America. LoRa is a physical proprietary radio communication technique that uses low power but long range. It's mainly used for IoT devices and sensors where the distances of operation in these environments are great and harsh. It's ideal for sending and receiving messages. They're receiving the small messages that sensors, IoT devices, or PLC type of devices use. All right. It has end-to-end encryption. Asterisk that with, depends on the initial build design and the protocol version you're using. The newer versions actually have addressed those flaws. When using LoRa for nefarious side channel, it's important to remember that it's a serial protocol and the packet messages are small and it's half duplex. To effectively use, you're going to be writing your own custom programming. But since the adapter's serial device is trivial, two ways to operate is a gateway adapter. In my testing, the range is a half a mile to about 2 miles where I live and testing in Albany. The mode of operation allows for multiple devices to connect, but that's really not important unless you're going to deploy multiple drop boxes in a site. You can use a public LoRa WAN service, but there's OPSEC issues with that, which can be overcome. For example, the LoRa server provider, the Thing Network, offers a free 10-device account. It requires a credit card and an email, but again, prepaid debit card and a burner account, and you're good to go. This service has some interesting features and add-ons that actually make it very functional for a team to work off of a Dropbox this way. It has authenticated MQTT, it has multiple endpoint services for mapping, so the functional range and the number of people that can use a Dropbox. Let's see, you can self-host a LoRa WAN server. There's a number of open source choices, or you can get a device that has it pre-installed. Using this setup would all but be untraceable, but you will need to answer the questions for field deployment, such as the power of the gateway and the internet connection. Personally, I don't have it on me, but it's a hollowed out rock with a solar panel to power everything, and the battery pack. All right, what was I? Oh, yeah. Well, you're thinking, well, the gateway with an LTE will end the power source. It's very practical. If you're thinking, well, I just say LTE is bad, it is. But again, the gateway device is going to be deployed up to about 2 miles away from the Dropbox. All right. The other operation mode is point-to-point. Again, several vendors have point-to-point firmwares, and there's a standard for point-to-point LoRa. Same operational issues with the gateway setup as far as power, etc. There are several tools that have been written for providing TCP services over LoRa, but essentially what you do need is just to install the AX25 protocol, and you will get TCP services running, so you can do your SSH into the box. All right. One of the features of LoRa payload that helps it to be used as a command and control method is the F-port byte. The purpose of this byte is actually to send and receive different types of messages to a sensor. PLCs and whatnot are very simple devices. But we can use it to overcome the message size restrictions by sending by sending a large uplink message, by breaking the message up and increasing the F-port number with each uplink message until the message is completely sent. You have 224 before you have to reset the F-port byte. 225 and higher is restricted for future development. All right. Same way as we can use the download message for the F-port to distinguish what kind of commands we want to run on the Dropbox. Again, there's an article out on Netitude Labs, addressed later on the thing, that will show you how to set up the LoRa, the proof of concept script for your own testing. And I am in the process of actually writing out one on my deployment of the shell rock and stuff. All right. I guess I should have told you how I like to run Dropbox. I have them automated where once they're deployed, they run certain recons, get me the data before I go interactive with the devices. So, all right. So this works for my testing. All right, let's go. All right. But we like interactive speeds in our shells and our C2s. While LTE devices have the IME number and the SIMS information for tracing, you can look for a prepaid service provider, the data service. It works just fine. Use cache. Again, we are looking to meet certain clients' cybersecurity postures and not be criminals. All right. I talked about Dropbox, so let's just talk about building custom concealments real quick. Old bricks are good. This is all repetitive. Stickers, units that have screws are easier, but you can crack over power units. Goodwill shops, e-waste, dump-offs are great places to find oversized bricks. The negative is it is a fixed space, but you'll be surprised once you learn how to cut cables and USB connectors, how easy it is. When you're making your own custom concealments, parts you're going to need are as a micro AC to DC, 5-volt DC. 2 amp converters is good. That's the device by the quarter, as you can see, so it will convert down 120 down to the 5-volt DC. C14 recessed male adapters, those are the ones that look like the back of a computer. Know how to cut your own RJ45 and USB cables. Since Duckwall's work requires knowing the computer and the switch connections, I use 2 different color connectors for this purpose. At the end of the day, that's what it looks like, and it's just big. And when it's under the desk, nobody's ever going to see it. And if they are looking at that point, it's pretty over. Okay, so you got a 3D printer. Now what? Well, do what everyone else in the industry does. Just copy and modify your figure needs. The sliding box one actually modifies out really well. Look for a case that makes it look sort of like a PoE injector. That would work well too. Labels, laser printer with a clear sticker on top of it, you're good to go. You can buy Amazon or several other locations, yellow electrical warning stickers that, slap on it, you're good to go. Once it's under the desk, as I said, or deployed, people are not going to notice it. Sometimes even when they're actually looking for it. I've actually had to tell clients, no, it isn't by the printer. No, look at it. No, it's the Lenovo brick. Come on. But okay, let's change up a little bit. Let's look at data acquisition for social engineering. One of my favorite fishes are tax time and open enrollment emails. Nothing original there. But how do you get that data for emails to get that click so we can do our nifty HTML smuggling or credentials capture, session capture with Evil Genix? I use the breach data. I look for breaches where a target will mix business details with personal data, such as travel sites or hotels. I mean, how many times have you all used your personal cell phone number when you're booking a business trip? All right. One way to get this, one way to get a target company's employees' personal information is combining the data breaches services with personal search services, such as the public website, the hash, and the free search, true person search. This will allow for getting a target's current address and birth date for using in social engineering attacks. Since this talk is about anonymous services, I have used prepaid debit cards to gain these services like the hash. It requires just a burner account and a burner number, so it's nothing. True person search is free, but it may not be after this talk, so. All right, but there are others. I mean, there are just others. These are just happen to be two that are very convenient and easy to use for the people. I would recommend, if you have the means, to look for the raw data breaches to get a copy of that, because the legitimate services like DHash allow for a target to request that their data be removed. All right, to look at one sample of a breach that contains data that you can use in social engineering attacks is the Acxiom breach from 2020. Yeah. It provides names, home addresses, telephone numbers. This breach also contains work email addresses, which is going to be the quickest way, obviously, to associate an employee with a target. The addresses within this data can be old, but the true person search has the old addresses with the present addresses, so it's really trivial to associate the data to the targets. This is just a sample email that I normally use when I'm using breached data to get the address and the birth. As soon as you put in certain personal information and exit out a little bit, it just automatically causes a level of trust. Depending on the client's email banner, I either use something similar, or I have a number of pretext domains that we'll talk about in later. This email never sends in any kind of tracking, but I sometimes use a read or delivery receipt just to add weight. All right, so how do you find out about the current payroll system? Just call the HR department looking like to sell them a new system. I mean, questions such as, how do you like your current payroll system? Oh, I'm sorry, what vendor was that again? Same as getting the information for the target's open enrollment period or benefits provider. Just ask them what the open enrollment period is and, who handles their benefits. Both will give you the information you need to make a personalized email that sends it right to the people. As you can see from these slides, I am limited, in my creativity. So how do I get phishing samples? When I get a good one in the email, I just stick it in a folder that says sample emails. I just clean up any links with the company systems and then create a reasonable landing page. It's not original, but it does work for me. I love Microsoft. All right, let's see. Which leads us into the burnt sites. Nothing worse than creating a nice landing page, get it ready to go, and have it picked off before even first email sent in. This first bit is kind of like regular type of pen testing. Let's say that you cannot use one of the nice tricks by Mr. Docs, such as Browser and Browser, or even Nginx. The client doesn't use O365, or the client just really insists on wanting something of their services. So how are these services burnt? Well, in my experience, the items that get you burnt when you need to clone a site and use a domain that's similar is failure to remove the Google tracker, which is a good way for a threat actor to find sites associated with a target. But if you clone a site and forget to take it out, Google has a tool, and it will alert, and it will burn you. The others is monitoring services, looking for new domains and sites. Hosting a different company site before changing to the spoof site will help, but brand monitors and threat hunter vendors check out new domains or domain names similar to the high-profile companies. Some under contract, and some of them are just looking for a perfect sales introduction. How to avoid this, I find, is, again, when you have to clone a site, is to kill the Google tracker. Don't host the target's files, self-host them. Change the cloner's user agent. Nothing stands out more in a log file than that. You can use a proxy to clone the sites to mimic browsing instead of cloning. Okay, but it's like, how easy is it for threat hunters to detect new sites? I mean, do they need a lot of resources to monitor this type of stuff? No, really, it's fairly easy. Sites like SearchStream from Fish Finder and other TLS transparency sites and the Common Crawl project make it very easy to monitor new sites when they're registered and turned up. The service sites such as SearchStream shows all no TLS certificates being issued in real time. It's rather trivial for a threat hunter firm to create a script that flags potentially dirty sites for investigation or classify new sites, domain names that have been registered at dodgy names, and just other metadata. Common Crawl does take a period to go ahead and cache new sites that have been created. It runs about once a month. but this is the snapshot of what you get with the search stream feed. There are other services, so this isn't the only one that offers it, again, for free. And both the Common Core crawl and the search stream are free, so you don't need to worry about that. As attackers, we can actually use these types of services for an offensive purpose. Using the transparency records, looking for type squatters on high-volume sites. When we get a hit, go clone the site. Normally, it's a nice malware redirector. You got to clean it up, but you'll get the JavaScripts and also potentially new methods of infection. You will need to use a proxy to capture the data because these are smart. They look for the agents, and also if you hit the site more than once, they will actually redirect you to a clean site. Here's the site, foxbnews.com. You'll notice on the keyboard that both the B and the N are next to each other. It's a rather nice fat finger domain squat. While the domain has privacy, I don't think Fox Broadcasting Group registered it out of Czechoslovakia. And this is also a way to monitor for malware sites and to go ahead and get some free samples. All right, now how to avoid, because we're talking about actually going up against real advanced targets. My practice for phishing and recon is actually to set up a company with a proper internet presence. Again, nothing brilliant there. I have a cybersecurity company, such as this one, a tax service company, a couple of secured messaging sites, a job recruitment site, a maintenance company, and I may or may not have a law firm. These sites are pretexts or will proxy the malicious traffic through. This company was from around 2017. It was fun because actually I've created a phishing training course to go along with that pretext. The course is clean, and it actually will teach you how to spot a phish based off other courses. However, the video training was based on Cobalt Strike's Java payload. This was like before Cobalt Strike became the Metasploit of red teamers. And a certificate of completion, which was a malicious Word document. Again, this was 2017. Now I use ISOs, download ISOs, etc. This kind of pretext allows for going in multiple directions. I should point out that you cannot get a personal code signing certificate that's required for Java for either business or personal by anonymous ways unless you're really going to break the law. So Java is really out. All right, Secure Document Send was another legitimate site service that I used. My recommendations when creating a company pretext, besides having a nice landing page, is actually to create a LinkedIn page. I have a few LinkedIn profiles. All I do with these LinkedIn profiles is modify the job and the descriptions of them to match the next pretext. I don't create new ones and try to get 1,000 friends. Let's see, I normally target, all right. So, like I said, I haven't had any issues so far with LinkedIn, where I just changing the company names and experiences. I normally target people that state that they attend conferences and speakers at conferences. It's a nice, hey, it was nice to meet you at B-Sides, or I saw your talk, be my friend. Another side note, if you actually want to get a target's employees to connect with you on LinkedIn, just create a profile that says you work for the target. LinkedIn will be really nice and helpful and give you everybody else to friend. All right, let's see. Again, the domain register account is using a burner phone number and an email. The domains are all purchased with prepaid debit cards, and the infrastructure is hosted either on a one-year prepaid service or one of the other VPCs. All right, we're doing good. All right, now moving back into, say, an active reconnaissance. Let's talk about network infrastructure for bypassing the Tor endpoints and VPN signature detections. We're from America, and frankly, we love overkill. The more overly complicated and feature-rich, well, it's just got to be better. But if you're going to go duck hunting, do you shoot 2 pounds of lead at a duck? No. General rule, overcomplicated with the wrong tool is going to get you detected. Using the Tor will likely red flag a target. Again, we're thinking about targets with more mature security programs. So how can you anonymize your traffic to appear from a clean IP address? In the past, I used to use an OpenVPN hidden service on the Tor to proxy my traffic through. But in analyzing it, really all you need is a Windows RDP session in a data center. You don't need Tails, or you don't need some other read-only OS. At the end of the day, we're under contract, and we're not actually looking to be criminals. We're just looking to meet our clients' team's abilities. So the workflow to bypass the Tor or a VPN endpoint is just to buy with prepaid debit cards, either the VPN service or VPC, and VPC. You just set up a Windows host in the VP Center, VPN tunnel RDP to the host to surf from. I do it this way to avoid any kind of IP leakages that you sometimes get with some HTML magic or web RTCs. If you want to use SOCATs to proxy the Windows host go ahead. It really won't make a difference. But I find Windows hosts are just easier with social media accounts and doing active reconnaissance against the target. Just remember always to clean up your logs on the VPCs and the host, and because good OPSEC hygiene always. All right, but you want overly complicated. Same thing, prepaid VPN, VPCs, set up an open VPN hidden service on your VPC provider. On the dirty laptop, connect to the VPN, to the Tor network, connect to your OpenVPN hidden service. OpenVPN self-signed certificates do not have the same issues on the Tor endpoints as you do with HTTPS hidden services, so using a self-signed certificate is fine. And then proxy and surf your web, but again, overly complicated. All right. Wow, I did go through very quickly. Cool. All right, let's wrap up with highlighting why we would want to anonymize our traffic with a little story. All right, our client company is an energy service group. It is the target. P.S. I have never worked for this company, and I have no association with this company. I wouldn't do that to any of my clients or anybody I'm under NDA with. Basic reconnaissance determined that they use Proofpoint in 0365, likely MFA is enabled, but we have our fake companies, our fake phishing sites, maybe Eagle Gen X, ready to bypass Proofpoint in 0365 to get an email into the target's inbox. We use ZoomEye. ZoomEye is like Shodan. It's just better. It's not blocked as much. It's, again, Chinese and it's dodgy, but whatever. ZoomEye, we see a couple of Fortinet VPNs, several SIP servers, likely video conference solutions, which is a plus. Several sign-in portals that are within the target range IP space. A couple actually look good to be single-factor and usable for further attacks. It looks like they have a file service. And this is all true. I've again, passively looked at this company. All right, so we feel we can social engineer this client and get an initial foothold from an employee to download our payable. The SIP servers, beautifully, they give you the internal domain name. So now you have your domain pinning for your C2 payload. All right, we look at the physical location. There's the one on the left-hand side there. There's one food location. Open lines of sites for either Wi-Fi, low-RA, side channel, a couple places to actually set up and actually monitor for physical break-in, the flow of the employees in the morning. Physically, the building is isolated, but it looks like right there on the bottom is an open seating area. So that looks well for physical break-in for placement. You see that the ECIDs have quite a few guests. So they're likely to have employees or guests coming in to visit. It also could be used by the employees as a bring your own device network. And if that's the case, you're likely to find a corporate asset on the guest network. All right, so things are looking good for us. So we used the hash site. We see that this got 656 records related to public breaches. And looking over the data, we find the one user, the Seth McVicker. Looks good. Multiple passwords that appear to be the kids and the spouse's names. This person has a large social media context, again, with kids, family trips, and whatnot. Good stuff to use against social engineering her. So we do a quick Google dork to confirm that she looks good as a target. The job title looks good, like something that would receive outside documents or files. A side note, Google Dorking with a social media service company as the site, and then the target domain name is a very effective way of getting the data very quickly. All right, so we go over to true person search. To get the data to send in a personalized email, we get her current address, birth date, month, the phone numbers, whole 9 yards, again, free. We look at the kids and the husbands. Kids may be dependents. Since they show up, they still live at home. You know, it's not a good play for the email, but maybe if you have to make the phone call, you know, knowing the kids' information is good. Interestingly, the husband has a different address, but the phone numbers match up. So let's go ahead and see. And just like that, our engagement target could have resources that we did not plan on going up against. So, all right. And now we're glad that we took the time to anonymize our accounts and infrastructure before going into an active testing. Again, all of that was done passively and in about 5 minutes. While this story was my attempt to recap the different activities discussed today to give reasons why you would want to go to the trouble, the point to remember in any engagement, you never know who knows who or what relationships the targets have. This is especially true in certain geographical locations in America, like Scottsdale, Arizona, that you have so many different vendors, internet companies, and data centers. But really what happened, I was looking at the FBI's email accounts for public breaches to use as an example, and I came across John's number, the husband, and it just wasn't matching the other numbers that were in the dump. The other numbers I could see were associated with the FBI or business. So really quickly looked at the number. Well, it seems that John decided to mix his personal cell phone with his work email address, and really it was just bad OPSEC for an FBI agent. So I created the backstory with the wife's employer as the fictional client, just to recap. FYI, all right, John is retired from the FBI, so don't harass them. You know, everything I've shown again was passive recon. I did say this, right? Yeah, so, all right. Just to restate once more, once you get into the habit of using prepaid debit cards and burner accounts, it's really a trivial matter to be able to run engagements against targets with more advanced capacities, to put a layer of anonymous attestation between you and the targets, to make yourself appear as a threat actor that has compromised the third-party site or utilize a side channel method that cannot be monitored or tracked. To be able to use threat hunter tools and services to better hone our own tradecraft. I hope you have gained a little knowledge to use in your engagements. Thank you for listening. I'm Pat Matthews, and you can reach me at pmatthews@nedtude.com. And as I said, the articles on the Dropbox creation and LoRa can be currently found on Nedtude's labs. And again, I want to thank the B-Sides team for a very good conference. And I'm going to be available for questions either here now or outside. Doop. Questions? Yes, sir.
How sophisticated does a company's IT security need to be to make an engagement like this worthwhile?
It depends on who their monitoring solution is, to be honest. Unless you're going up against, say, the DoD or a government agency, state agency, it depends on who their monitoring company is. So if they have a SOC that is, you know, one of the better ones, then yes, you would want to go to this trouble because they have the capacities to actually figure out stuff. But you're not a criminal, so it all depends on where you want to be and stuff of that nature. I will admit some of it is academic with the day-to-day usage and stuff like that, but you translate that into your own personal life as far as using burner accounts, other things. For example, it drives my wife crazy that I have 3 cell phones, you know, so, you know, I have my burner one that give out to everybody, I have my work phone, and then I have my family-only phone, so, but yeah. All right, does that answer your question?
Yeah, do they bring you in after to sort of scare everybody, or is it
No. It's not a scare. It's actually meeting your client's sophistication. Because at the end of the day, as a penetration tester or a red teamer, you need to make your clients better. You have to introduce methodologies that make them think, that improve their skill set. So it's not about scaring anyone. It's actually about meeting the capacities that they have. Yep. Yes, sir.
For your burner phones, do you
Yeah.
use like a Graphene OS Linux or just like Android or iOS?
Both. I have iOS and Apple and Android. Because of the fact that each of them give you benefits that the other ones don't have, especially in the realm of when you're using proxy accounts for social media and stuff like that. So you have an Apple account, you get an Apple email address, you get an Android, you get a Gmail. Having a Gmail email address is more beneficial in certain areas because, again, the trust model is such, once you have that Gmail, you can get other Gmail accounts off of it. Yes, there's metadata associations and stuff like that. That's actually what I talk about in 2019. So a lot of that stuff is there. Mm-hmm. So, any other questions? No? Excellent. Well, I want to thank you, and like I said, hopefully you did get something out of it, and if not, thank you for not all walking out. Yeah.